Welcome to AmeenAcademy.com. Let us do the life stories of scientists and that Johannes Kepler. Let us discuss about him. German astronomer Johannes Kepler discovered three major laws of planetary motion, conventionally designated as follows. First one, the planets move in elliptical orbits with the sun at one focus. Second one, the time necessary to traverse any arc of planetary orbit is proportional to the area of the sector between the central body and that arc. That is area law. Third one, there is an exact relationship between the squares of the planet's periodic times and the cubes of the radii of their orbits. That is the harmonic law. Kepler himself did not call these discoveries laws, as would become customary after Isaac Newton's derived them from a new and quite different set of general physical principles. He regarded them as a celestial harmonies that reflected God's design for the universe. Kepler's discoveries turned Nicolaus Copernicus' sun-centered system into a dynamic universe, with the sun actively pushing the planets around in non-circular orbits. And it was Kepler's notion of a physical astronomy that fixed a new problematic for other important 17th century world system builders, the most famous of whom was Newton. Among Kepler's many other achievements, he provided a new and correct account of how vision occurs. He developed a novel explanation for the behavior of light in the newly invented telescope. He discovered several new semi-regular polyhedrons, and he offered a new theoretical foundation for the astrology, while at the same time restricting the domain in which its prediction could be considered reliable. A list of his discoveries, however, fails to convey the fact that they constituted for Kepler's part of the common edifice of knowledge. The matrix of theological, astrological, and physical ideas from which Kepler's scientific achievements emerged is unusual and fascinating in its own right. Now, let us discuss further about Kepler's life. 4 centuries ago, an evening entertainment was and simple and stepping out of gaze at the night sky. But among the world's many star watchers, one man stood apart, Johannes Kepler, in 1571 to 1630, was a mathematician and physicist who not only observed but also sought to explain the celestial dawns above. As a rather frail young man, the exceptionally talented Kepler turned to mathematics and the study of the heavens early on. When he was 6, his mother pointed out a comet visible in the night sky. When Kepler was 9, his father took him out one night under the stars to observe a lunar eclipse. These events both made a vivid impression on Kepler's youthful mind and turned him towards a life oriented to the study of astronomy. Kepler used a simple mathematics to formulate three laws of planetary motion. Kepler's first law stated that planets move in elliptical paths around the sun. He also discovered that planets move proportionally faster in their orbits when they are closer to the sun. This became a Kepler's second law. Finally, Kepler's third law explained the relationship between the distances of planet from the sun and the amount of time it took to orbit the sun. Together, these laws of celestial mechanics revolutionized astronomy. The era in which Kepler lived was one of the tremendous upheaval and changes, said Dr. Don Lewis, curator of the history of science and technology and at the Huntington Library in San Marco, California. Religious leaders were reluctant to relinquish their ideas about the heavens, talked by astronomers of a sky filled with objects moving in non circular orbits and other phenomena that went against the Earth centric model threatened their beliefs. As a result, Kepler and his first wife, Barbara, created a code with which to write letters to each other so that their correspondence would not put them at risk of persecution. Near the end of the 16th century, Kepler apprenticed himself to the astronomical observer Tycho Brahe, who had an observatory on the island of Haven in Denmark. Haven in Denmark. The somewhat eccentric Tycho, who had lost a portion of his nose in a duel and replaced the tip of it with a contraption made of gold and silver, was nevertheless a brilliant astronomer. Kepler absorbed a great deal of information from his time working for Brahe. He based much of his later calculations on Tycho's observations. In 1604, Kepler saw the last supernova observed in our Milky Way galaxy, which he documented 2 years later in his book De Stella Nova, published in Prague in 1606. The explosion of the dying star was initially as bright as Mars and could be seen with the naked eye. This was indeed good fortune, for the telescope would not be invented for other 5 years. Several observations spotted the supernova on October 9, 1604. Kepler did not see it until October 17 due to cloudy skies in his part of the world, but he studied the event so extensively that it was named after him. The Kepler supernova is now a remnant, but it is still studied by astronomers, including those of NASA, three great observatories, the Spitzer Space Telescope, Hubble Space Telescope, and Chandra X-ray Observatory. The three observatories use infrared light, visible light, and X-ray respectively. Kepler was deeply driven by a desire to understand the analytical why of astronomy well beyond the descriptive what of his predecessors Ptolemy and Tycho. He was also guided by a notion of beauty in the structure of the universe. In his words, happy is the man who devotes himself to the study of the heavens. Their study will furnish him with the pursuit of enjoyments. Johannes Kepler's life was marked by tragedy, including the deaths of his children, his wife, and financial difficulties. He also had to defend his mother from accusation of witchcraft. Childhood. Kepler was born prematurely in 1571 to a poor family. His father was a mercenary who left the family when Kepler was young. Kepler was often ill as a child and nearly died of smallpox at age 3. He developed long-term vision problem as a result of his childhood illnesses. Kepler's 7-year-old son died and his wife died. He married Susanna Reutinger, but their first three children died in childhood. Three more children survived into adulthood. Financial difficulties. Kepler was not paid by Rudolf II for his services. He had financial difficulties and had to move to Linz from Prague. Witchcraft accusations. Kepler's mother was accused of witchcraft and he was troubled by defending her. That Kepler died of a fever in Regensburg on November 15, 1630. His grave was destroyed during the 30 Years' War. Now further, we'll discuss some detail about Kepler's of planetary motion. This is important in science. The Kepler's first law. Each planet's orbit around about the sun in elliptical orbit. The sun's center is always located at one focus of the orbital ellipse. Thus, the sun is at one focus. The planet follows the ellipse in its orbit, meaning that the planet to sun distance is constantly changing as the planet goes around the orbit. Kepler's second law. The imaginary line joining the planet and the sun sweeps equal areas of space during equal time interval as the planet orbits. Rather, their speed varies so that the line joining the centers of the sun and the planet sweeps out equal parts of an area in equal times. The point of nearest approach of the planet to the sun is termed perihelion. The point of greatest separation is aphelion. Hence, by Kepler's second law, a planet is moving fastest when it is at perihelion and slowest in aphelion. Kepler's law. Kepler's third law. Look at here. R square is proportional to a cube, where T is time of constant or complete orbit. A is a length of semi-major axis. The square of the orbital periods of the planets are directly proportional to the cubes of the semi-major axis of their orbits. This is Kepler's third law. Kepler's third law implies that the period for a planet to orbit the sun increases rapidly when the radius of its orbit. Thus we find that the Mercury, the innermost planet, takes only 88 days to the orbit in the sun. The Earth takes 365 days, while Saturn requires 10,759 days to do the same. Though Kepler had not known about a gravitation when he came up with his three laws. They were instrumental in Isaac Newton's deriving his theory of universal gravitation, which explains the unknown force behind Kepler's third law. Kepler and his theories were crucial in the better understanding of our solar system dynamics, and as a springboard to newer theories that more accurately approximate our planetary motion. So far, we discussed about Johannes Kepler. We have done. Please subscribe our YouTube channel.